on behalf of the Cyprus University of Technology, ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence, and the Department of Electronic Communications of the Deputy Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digital Policy, I would like to welcome everyone to today's event on gender, science, and earth observation, strategies to support gender-responsive leadership. Special thanks for today's event are on to the Department of Electronic Communications for kindly sponsoring the event, and of course to our two invited speakers, Professor Maria Rentetzi and Ms. Barbara Ryan, for kindly accepting our invitation to come to Cyprus and participate as speakers at this event. I would like also to mention that this event is organized in the framework of International Space Week that is running now. We start with a welcome note by Ms. Eleana Gabriel on behalf of the Deputy Minister for Research, Innovation and Digital Policy, Mr. Kyriakos Fokinos. Thank you. Dear guests, good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to welcome everyone to today's event, and thank you all for joining. Please allow me to start by congratulating the organizers for this great initiative, showcasing and honoring women's involvement in this so promising industry, and also extend a warm welcome to our guest speakers from abroad. Dear friends, bridging the gender gap in the earth observation sector and beyond is crucial for achieving our national and our European development goals, for building a sustainable and better future for all. A diversified set of skills, along with different perspectives, are among the most important features that foster and generate innovation success. That is why we should all work together to ensure equal access to STEM education for women and girls, and eventually a STEM career. This is essential from human rights, scientific, and development standpoint, and particularly taking into consideration that according to the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, 90% of future jobs will need skills related to STEM. The government places great emphasis on supporting a gender-balanced reality in business, politics, and society. The green and digital transitions are large-scale opportunities with the potential to improve social and economic outcomes, and they cannot be achieved without leveraging on the capabilities, the mind, and the creativity of both men and women. The Ministry is taking concrete steps to ensure women and men work hand in hand and on an equal basis to develop and better utilize the technologies of tomorrow. In specific, we are currently in the process of developing a gender equality plan with a wide range of actions, from raising awareness of leadership to promoting policies and measures on national level, following a multi-stakeholder approach and pursuing efficient partnerships between government, academia, and industry. In this context, we shall all incorporate gender data in our mechanism for monitoring and supporting the progress of the 6 centers of excellence, among them ERATOSTHENES, which are hosted in our country. In addition, we have included targeted intervention in our National E-Skills Action Plan, funded by the Recovery and Resilience Fund, and additional national funds to enhance the skills for our female population, as well as to generate more awareness of their potential and their important role they can play in accelerating Cyprus' national digital agenda. We are committed to providing women and girls with all the tools and support necessary to become the role models and leaders of tomorrow. Closing, I would like to reiterate that our strong commitment supporting the expansion of R&D activity in the space sector and ensure Cyprus, despite more time, leverages and available opportunities such as cooperation with the European Space Agency to build a strong space ecosystem, one that can develop into a strong pillar of the country's economic model, support traditional industries, and create value for the society as a whole. We are very proud to be hosting the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence, formed under the Team in Action of Horizon 2020, which has been pivotal in paving the way for Cyprus to join the space arena, generating new opportunities for innovative research and establishing further partnerships at all levels, with women and men equally present, involved, and benefiting from the impact drive. Thank you once again for coming and all the best in today's tutorial. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Avril. We continue with a welcome note by Professor Evelyn Fox Teller, Chairman of the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence Board of Directors and Chairman of the Department of Civil Engineering and Geomatics, Cyprus University of Technology.
Good evening. Dear Honorable Minister of Communication and Works and member of our board at the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence, Mr. Dimitriadis, we are discussing with guests and on behalf of the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence, I would like to express my very warm welcome to today's event. As the chairman of the board of directors of the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence, I am very grateful to Professor Maria Rentetzi and Mrs. Barbara Ryan for their kind acceptance to participate as invited speakers as well as panel members to this event. As board of directors of the newly established center, we promote initiatives to target cultural change within the center. Our aspiration is to set the right fundamental values for gender inclusivity and diversity at all levels for the center of excellence. Beginning with this, as board directors, we have already approved the development plan, which commits the center towards the creation of a fully inclusive environment. It will be achieved by working actively to create a work environment where employees and researchers at all levels have equal rights and opportunities. As a newly established organization, we acknowledge the significance of gender inclusive working environments and added value that these can bring to an organization at all levels, including organizational, managerial, and of course, decision making. Nevertheless, we still find obstacles to achieve this, especially on the decision-making level, and we are here today to listen to our invited speakers and see how we can improve possibly. At this point, I want to give the floor to the two speakers, and I'm looking forward to listening carefully to their insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Maria.
No.
We continue with the first speech by Professor Maria Rentetzi, Head of the Chair of Science, Technology and Gender Studies, Alexander University, Erlangen-Nürnberg, entitled Gender in Science and Technology, a Historical Review. Professor Rentetzi is one of a handful of scholars working in the intersection of science and technology studies, nuclear diplomacy, and gender. Her research focuses on two intertwined areas of inquiry: the investigation of the politically and historically secreted character of technoscience and the critical examination of gender as a major analytic category in technoscientific endeavors. She's an affiliate of the Max Planck Institute of History of Science and was previously a guest professor at Technical University Berlin, a Silverman professor at Tel Aviv University in Israel, and a professor at the National Technical University of Athens. She joined the Alexander University in January 2021. Professor Rentetzi has been trained as a physicist at the Aristotelian University of Thessaloniki, Greece. She received her Master of Arts in History of Science and Technology from the National Technical University of Athens and a PhD in Science and Technology Studies from Virginia Tech, USA. She was a postdoctoral fellow and guest scholar at Max Planck Institute for History of Science and the Larry Meitner Fellow of the Austrian Science Fund. She has received multiple international awards for her scholarship, including the Gutenberg Prize for the American Historical Society and one of the most prestigious grants in Europe, the ERC Consolidated Grant. Her ERC project focuses on the history of radiation protection and the role of the International Atomic Energy Agency in setting radiation standards after World War II. Through her ERC project, she currently leads the development of a new strand of research, diplomatic studies of science. Professor Rentetzi is a corresponding member of the International Academy of History of Science, a member of Academia, a council member and the former president of the Commission of Gender and Women in STEM of the Division of History and Science and Technology of the International Union of History and Philosophy of Science and Technology, and a founding member and treasurer of the Association of ERC Grantees. She was a scientific advisor to the Greek alternate Minister of Foreign Affairs on Science Diplomacy, and is a member of Friedrich Alexander University Nürnberg Excellence Committee and leads the University Internalization Strategy.
Hello from my side as well. Thank you very much for this very generous introduction. It's an honor. It's like myself, we work on that time. I am minded on a village. When people are trying to apply for funding, and they look for someone like me, in some work, EU proposals, and say, okay, we keep the gender requirement for an EU application. So I think it's, I just invite we are part of it already. Why you already have 38 million of Europe to administer, you already have the money, so you don't need architects to get the funding. But as I said, it's a very good sign that we need architects to make a better environment for your scholars and the people that work in the project. So special thanks for this invitation. Really, it's important for us, and I hope it's going to be interesting for those who participate and are here today. I'm a historian of science, basically. I'm a historian of radioactivity and nuclear sciences. I started though as a physicist. In the early 80s, late 80s, I joined the University of Thessaloniki in Greece, the physics department, because really this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to study physics. I was excited about this. During the first semester, I realized that this is probably not my place. Why? Because I really saw that I was among the very few women in the audience. Mainly, I looked around the amphitheaters and I saw men following the same courses that I was following. So I had this feeling that something is wrong, and I realized that it's not wrong only for the University of Thessaloniki, but it had been wrong historically. So this is when I decided to, of course, finish my studies at the university and get a degree in physics, but also change my career later on and start working on history of physics and what is called science and technology studies, a more sociological and historical perspective on physics and on the sciences in general. So when I started this research, let's say, I realized that, as I said, I wasn't the only one. Historically, if you look what was happening in 1918, the situation was very similar, but this is something that you expect in 1918, right? This is what Lisa Meitner, for those who know physics, is one of the most known physicists, female physicists of her time. And this is what she said about Rutherford, and I guess you know Rutherford from your school, even from your school text, your books. So I met Rutherford, she says, for the first time. Maybe it's better if I read from the computer. I met Rutherford for the first time in 1908, when on the way back from receiving the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in Stockholm, he visited Berlin to see his pupil, Otto Hahn. When he saw me, he said in great astonishment, "Oh, I thought you were a man." He hadn't realized that I was a woman. Okay, as I said, this is something that someone expects. But what happens when we move into time, 1957, this is Evelyn Fox Teller. She has been working at the MIT as professor there. She has been highly acknowledged. She received all major prizes that there are in history of science. And that was the time in 1957 that she was following. She was just got into the physics department at Harvard. And she had a very similar experience. She said even worse, actually, in 57. She said here basically that she walked in the amphitheater and she was noticed every day, and all the eyes were turning on her because she was one of the few women in the room. And even worse, everyone was asking her whether she actually can understand what was happening in there, whether she was able to comprehend the lectures that she was attending. If I start talking to you about the statistics today, what is happening, how many women, whether we have women in the sciences, the answer is very simple. We don't. We still are underrepresented in major fields like physics, mathematics, engineering, or especially whatever has to do with computers and the digital world. Women are still underrepresented. What's the problem, though, with the statistics? These are quotes that come from an article that came out in Nature in 2019. One of the issues is that not all countries collect high quality data, and of those that do not all collect data on the same career stages. So someone can say, yes, okay, we have the statistics, but actually the statistics are not good enough. Or we have different countries, have different policies and cultures, and meaningful international comparisons might make it possible with disadvantage some of the factors leading to success or failure in recruiting and retaining female physicists. UNESCO, this is a very good source to look for statistics and the current situation with women in the sciences. This is what they said in 2019. Overall, women account for a minority of the world's research. Before I go on, I want you to watch a very short YouTube video from UNESCO. I hope it's going to play out. Eleni, I might need your help. I'm not sure why it doesn't come up. It's not a big deal if you don't actually see, but I think it's coming up, right? Yeah. It's not more than 2 minutes this video. UNESCO was successful to bring up all the stereotypes that are connected with women's work in the sciences. And Ελένη, δεν βλέπω εδώ τα slides. Δεν βλέπω βλέπω. So the point, though, the suggestion, UNESCO suggestion at the end was for we need equal opportunity and equal pay if we want to change the situation. My point today in this talk is that this is not enough. And I'm going to use some of my historical work to argue that this is not enough. So how have we historians and philosophers of science deal with all these years, this situation? One of the ways was to explore the lives of women and make obvious, visible, the women that have worked in the sciences. Who doesn't know Curie? Who doesn't know of Curie? There are so many biographies of Curie and what she did and how important she was and all the life, all the difficulties that she had in life. So this has been one of the strategies. The other strategies is to go and look for women that succeed in special fields. So radioactivity, crystallography are some of the fields that had many women. And the other way was to actually question the physics itself, the epistemic grounds and basis of the discipline in order to understand why women are not attracted to physics. And this is not done only for physics, but for other disciplines as well. But as we know, physics is the paradigmatic science, especially for those who have done anything in philosophy of science. They know that for philosophers in the beginning of the 20th century, for the logical positivists, physics was the paradigmatic science, and all sciences should have actually become like physics. So this is the work in one slide, the work that philosophers and historians have done in this topic concerning women and gender in the sciences. My argument is that we should see things a little bit different, because based on my historical work, I have found out that women, especially in the late 19th and early 20th century, they succeeded. In some fields, they were able to succeed, they were able to get leadership positions, they were able to become visible in their communities. This is especially for radioactivity, astronomy, and crystallography. My work has been especially for Vienna, the Radium Institute in Vienna, and when I was working on this case study, I realized from the beginning that there were 38% participating and being active in that institute from the period from 1920s to 1934. Those women were not just present in the institute, but they were publishing, and the range of their participation, their publication is almost the same as the previous chart. 33% of women are publishing in the House Journal during this period. Types of collaborations, this is also interesting. Of course, we have men working with men, women working with women, but the most interesting part in this chart is the fact that women working with men, younger men, and they were actually their advisors and mentors, and we have many cases during this period of women that did exactly this. Mentors. We discussed this morning about the importance of mentors. There are two men, of course, having the leadership of the institute during this time. Stefan Meyer, he is Austrian. Hans Peterson, he comes from Oslo. Both of them are very important. What I want you to see is one of the reports that was written in 1928 from Hans Peterson, and this is what he says. As this work has now been organized, after several years of tentative efforts, each collaborator has his or her, and this is my emphasis, his or her particular share to take in making the practical preparations necessary for an experiment. Besides, each has his or her particular theme for research which he pursues and where he can count on the help from one or more of his fellow workers. Such help is freely given. Certain workers having spent months preparing the means required for another worker's theme. What we get out of this quote is the atmosphere, the very collaborative atmosphere at the Institute, but also something that even today, each of you, and I'm looking on the first row, the people that actually submit proposals and have their reports regularly, this is a language that we forget to use today. The guy in 1928, he was referring to his and her fellows. And I think that was a very important point at the moment. One also very important topic and issue at that time for this institute is that both men and women had access to instruments, something that becomes very difficult after the Second World War. And also they had their own space within the laboratory. This is also a major issue after the Second World War and even today. Space becomes a very key issue when it comes to gender. And here, when I was manipulating the pictures to see them more clearly, I realized that behind this lady, Karen Mikhailova, there is a guy sitting, and the opposite here, behind her, there is a woman coming into the laboratory. And I thought that symbolically, this is nice to show that the spaces are shared in an equal way. Why this happened? One of the major reasons is that politics is politics. We have the period of Red Vienna, the socialists have the power in the city. And why this matters for what is happening inside the laboratory? Because they help women take care. They help women become visible within the city, within the university. And actually, women become a political category during this period. So what happens inside the laboratory is influenced, and this is my point here, is influenced of what is happening outside in the society, in the political scenery during this period. And this is not only that time, during this time. We have an interesting situation during this period that we don't only have women working in Vienna in high numbers, but we also have, of course, women working with Marie Curie, 25 to 30% of women, Lisa Meitner and Otto Hahn in Berlin, another 14% of women, and you can see many others around Europe work on radioactivity. It's a new discipline, interdisciplinary, and women have chances to work outside of the university and the laboratory. What happens after the war? We have a dramatic shift. Why a dramatic shift? This is what Keller is telling us in 1977. She says physics had become a major industry. Huge investments put into experiments. The influx of money was an influx of manpower. This means that women were sided not anymore at the center, were not given enough space for their experiments. They were not given access to laboratories, to instruments, and I'm saying this not because Keller said this in one of her articles, but because we see all this situation in archives, in letters written during this period, in major and primary sources. Richard Feynman, this is a quote of what he said. I'm not going to read it all because I don't think we have enough time. But the major point is that they hire girls because they work better and they are cheaper. So women become assistants to big laboratories and they are not having chance to work as experimenters as it was before the war. The situation becomes even worse when physics become a UN project, a project of the United Nations, and especially nuclear physics. When the International Atomic Energy Agency is created, major physicists of the time get involved in the organization, get involved in the establishment and the politics of this organization. And it's interesting because if you start looking at pictures of this time, you don't even need to read letters or go to the archives. You just need to see the pictures from this period. There are no women, either in the laboratories or in the big rooms where big decisions are taking time, diplomatic and political decisions that concern physics. And this is an important point. What do you see instead? You see that the male physicists to develop research projects that are very gendered and they are not even conscious about what they are doing. For example, here is one of the major projects that the International Atomic Energy Agency is funded during the early days, and they created this mannequin. The mannequin didn't have to have a female appearance. It could have been just a non-gender mannequin, but they chose to create this mannequin. They gave her a name, and there was this guy that went around the world, 199 different laboratories, 44 countries in 3 years, going around with this mannequin in order to calibrate instruments. It doesn't matter the physics behind the story, to calibrate instruments in different laboratories. So this is the image of the new science that is going around. And if you look, these are not the only ones. The International Atomic Energy Agency is not the only one that designs and constructs this kind of instruments, but also the Americans. This is a guy that constructed all these mannequins for the same kind of projects. All of them have female names, and they were sent again in several different countries. This is how they look like. Do we need to have this kind of instruments at this period? No, there is no reason for having gender mannequins to do this kind of calibration work, but we do. My major point, and this is where I want to finish, we discussed this morning how we can change the situation of women in laboratories, in the sciences, not if we have only just equal pay and equal opportunities. I come from Greece. We have equal salaries in the universities. This doesn't mean that the position of women in the university is equal to men. So what we have to look at and what we have to change, I think, is the sciences themselves. We have to look and think how we gender our sciences. Just a very quick and final example. In 2019, NASA decided to send 2 women for a spacewalk. At the end, although the whole thing was arranged, at the end, 2 women were not able to do the walk on time. Why? Because NASA didn't have spacesuits on the size that was better for women. They had only medium size. So one was planned to wear the medium size, the other one was planned to wear large size. And of course, it didn't fit. And at the last minute, they canceled the whole thing. And they canceled the whole thing because nobody thought that they have to design something especially for these women that were going on this spacewalk. Why? Because usually NASA is overcrowded by men. Historically, women were not in the plan of getting into space. So this is where I want to finish. Think about the project that you do and how you gender your own sciences. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rentetzi. We continue with the next speech by Ms. Barbara Ryan, Executive Director of the World Geospatial Industry Council and a member of the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence Board of Directors. The presentation is entitled Gender Dimension in Earth Observation Careers. Under Barbara Ryan's leadership, millions of satellite images and other Earth observation data have been made available to the general public at no charge, allowing scientists, planners, and policymakers to make better informed decisions on problems that transcend political boundaries. Her work addresses critical issues in agriculture, biodiversity, climate change, disaster planning, energy, health, and water. Barbara Ryan's career began in 1974 when she joined the United States Geological Survey, the nation's largest natural resource science and civilian mapping agency. She advanced steadily in the USGS, earning master's degrees in geography from the University of Denver and civil engineering from Stanford University. As Associate Director of Geography at the USGS, she was responsible for the agency's remote sensing, geography, and civilian mapping programs, including the Landsat satellites. From 2008 to 2012, she was the director of the World Meteorological Organization Space Program, and from 2012 to 2018, she was the Secretariat Director of the Intergovernmental Group on Earth Observations in Geneva, Switzerland. Ryan has served as chair of the International Committee on Earth Observation Satellites, and she has been awarded an honorary doctorate of science degree from her alma mater, SUNY Cortland. She has been named an honorary fellow of the American Geographical Society in 2017, and she was one of the 10 global leaders to be named to the Geospatial World Forum's Hall of Fame. And in 2019, she was awarded the Department of Interior and NASA's Pecora Award. She serves on several boards and advisory committees, including the Ecological Sequestration Trust, the International Center for Earth Simulation, the International Symposium for Remote Sensing of Environment, and the Jane Goodall Institute. She also served as a policy advisor to the World Geospatial Industry Council and a member of ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence Board of Directors.
Thanks. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. And Maria, thanks. That was a really phenomenal presentation. I've got a couple, first of all, I'll talk a little bit more from a personal perspective. I do have a couple slides to show you, and then since I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion afterwards, where we'll pull out some of these additional thoughts and hopefully questions from the audience. I kind of like to start with this quote about realize that everything connects to everything else. I think it's a wonderful starting point, you can see from the 1400s. And not only is it so important for a center like this, because we of all people know everything is connected to everything else, whether it's the atmosphere, the ocean, or the land. But I think particularly for this presentation, then as humans, we're connected to each other. And I think this issue, while we tend to think of it as a female issue, it's as equally important for men as for women, and for you men in your careers, but also as you have families in the future and have daughters that you want to be as successful as you've been, then having you as champions for their careers is just so important. So everything is connected to everything. From a personal standpoint, I'll just put a quick slide together. I am 70 years old, and so this is called 70 years in 70 seconds. Hopefully I'll get it done in 70 seconds. But I want to say this because I was born in a farming community in upstate New York, actually not so much like Western New York, not New York City, quite a ways from New York City. And actually the topography looked a lot like this. As I was flying into Cyprus last night, I looked at some of the landscape and thought it was quite similar. But what's important for me on this particular slide is I can remember as a youngster, I don't know what age, 5, 6, 7. I can remember kind of laying in a field out behind our house, kind of looking at the sky. You could see, imagine at that age that sometimes the clouds would form formations, and you could even be afraid, you know, you would envision a witch or something in the sky. And I can remember running home. But as I look back at that time, I think even then as a youngster, I intuitively knew everything is connected to everything else. And yet somehow over the next 70 years, whether it's any of those educational institutes that I worked for or any of those organizations down at the bottom of the screen, most spent time dissecting that Earth's system and started separating those individual domains and not reconnecting the Earth as an integrated system. And of course, I think also in those educational systems, they separated us as men and women or girls and boys. And so somehow over 70 years, we go about this dissection period or time when in fact the exact opposite should be happening, not only in our families, but in our educational institutions and certainly our work environments. So I guess what I would say is, I don't know, you'll see some statistics a little bit later on. Have there been improvements? Absolutely. Over that 70 years, women have different positions now than they did 70 years ago, but we still do not have parity in the world. And it's almost unbelievable to understand that in this day and age, that condition exists. I do want to point out one other woman in this photograph up in the upper right-hand corner. That is Jane Goodall. She's, I don't know, 87 years of age now, and traveling something like 320 days a year. At least she was doing that before COVID. And so there are women out there where somehow their love of nature, her love of biology, hasn't been drilled out of her by our educational system or by our employment. And yet I think it's so important for all of us to make sure that those ideas about interconnectedness and us as one human race are in fact not drilled out of us and not drilled out as young girls. Let's take a look at just a couple of graphs. This is women in selected STEM occupations from 1960 to 2021. The colors are a biologist shown at the top. So Jane Goodall is one of those, probably the highest, up around 48% as we look out at 2021 or 2022. The next color down was orange. Those are chemists and material science. The next ones are computer and mathematical occupations. You saw the video that Maria talked about that showed just the reliance as we transition to a digital economy, and only a quarter of the occupants are women. And then lastly, engineers down at the bottom with 14% in blue. I even find this hard to believe because it was about 1985 when I was a graduate student at Stanford. I was in a civil engineering department, 1985. Some of you were not even born in 1985. And at that time, they said, this is such a phenomenal year. 50% of the students are women, 50% of the students are men. That was in 1985. What happened that we're down here at this point in time? In many of these arenas, we've lost ground, not gained ground. Another statistic is just the proportion of women on editorial boards. This is out of 30 peer-reviewed journals in remote sensing. And what you can do is see that in 3 of those 30 journals, there were no women on the editorial boards. Between about 10%, 1 and 9%, there were 6 journals that had 1 to 9% of women on editorial boards. About a quarter of them, 17%, 17 journals had somewhere between 10 and 24%, and 4 journals right at the top, remote sensing and ecology and conservation, had between 25 and 40%. So still, even with the highest journal, it's still not 50% women or 50% men. And so when Maria presented her numbers about grants that are given or research funding that's given, a lot of that research money is in fact awarded to people that might serve in some of these senior positions as editorial boards. And so the statistics are, one, not getting better, and often are working against the very incentives that we want to see. A little bit closer to home now in the organization that I'm leading. We are a not-for-profit organization, the World Geospatial Industry Council, but you have to be a private sector company to join. And so if you look at these companies, many of you will recognize some of the major companies in Earth observations and geospatial data around the world. So these are our members. But if you look at our board of directors, this is what it looks like. So of those major companies, only 2 women out of, I think, a board of close to 18 people. So in the geospatial sciences and Earth observations, we are still seeing women not making it to those senior level positions that would then permit them to sit on a board, for example, like in our institution, the World Geospatial Industry Council. Now, I have to say, this board, predominantly white, predominantly male, looked at this graph, looked at this picture and said, something's got to change. They know from their businesses that the data, the services, the tools that they put together, if they're going to be financially viable, those data and services and tools must address all the world's people. So it didn't take them too long to say, listen, we really need to establish a committee titled Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This is that DEI committee with Trimble, Scient, Geotech Vision, and our staff work from WGIC that form the committee. And one of the first things they did for this particular sector was, in fact, to release a policy that all those 18 men approved and 2 women approved in 2021. Clearly, it put a stance on our opposition of discrimination, harassment, and racial discrimination, not just gender discrimination. But they decided to undertake a study, which is ongoing right now, to look at some of the systemic issues that are facing this issue in particular, this sector in particular, and to actually put some work together on just the steps going forward. And then lastly, and we are about to present it in Essen, Germany at your InterGeo meeting, which is my first time to go, but apparently one of the largest geospatial conferences here in Europe in another couple of weeks. we did in fact launch a Trailblazer Award where 2 awards will be given out for DEI, one to an individual that was open globally, and then one to a company only open to a WGIC member company that has put rather substantial programs and made progress under DEI. I think that was my last slide. Oh no, this is the last slide. This is some work that has been done by the European Commission on detecting spatial patterns of inequality from remote sensing around the world. It's really just phenomenal. They've got some really intricate algorithms in place on just electricity and poverty and how bright the world is, which is actually what we're looking at from space, our lights from space. But I can't help but look at a graph like this and say how many young children, young girls or boys are there somewhere on the earth. And those are in fact going to be the future leaders in this particular sector. And so as WGIC Executive Director, I would just make a special plea to each and every one of you to spend some time looking around your respective organizations for talented people and somehow make sure that they have just opportunities for other assignments that will in fact be career enhancing as they go forward. So thank you very much. I certainly will look forward to the panel. So maybe stay up here, Elaine.
Thank you for the presentation. And we will now continue with a short panel discussion on strategies to support gender-responsive leadership at the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence. For this, I would invite Professor Rentetzi to join us back, and also invite Professor Diophantos Hadjimitsis, ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence Managing Director, Professor Andreas Anagiotos, ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence Functional Areas Manager, and former Director of the Cyprus University of Technology, and Ms. Anthea Christopini, Human Resources Manager of the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence. I think we can start. Also, this mic is on, so you can also use the other microphone. Okay. I would actually like to start with a question to Professor Andreas Anagiotos, considering also his existing experience in research and academia, and also as a former rector of the Cyprus University of Technology. Have you experienced any benefits of having gender-inclusive decision-making bodies? And if yes, which are these benefits, and what strategies do you think that we should adopt to ensure gender inclusivity at the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence, as also a functional areas manager of the center?
I think that I can speak without the microphone. It's not a very easy question. I have served as a rector from 2015 through 2019, but also as a vice rector from 2012 to 2015. So I would say that as a vice rector, I was a member of a decision-making team that had gender balance, because the rector was a female, the vice rector was a female, and we operated for 4 years as the academic leadership team that took decisions for the university. So what I would say is that when we were going to the higher administrative bodies, for example, the Parliament, the Department of Finance, the Department of Education, were viewed in a very positive way. I think this is very important, and were looked on as a balanced, representative decision-making team from the university, and also when we served as interviewers for higher positions, then we realized that female candidates were more comfortable with that representation, so they performed better. So I would say that it's very important to have this gender balanced decision-making bodies, because for administrators, for politicians, and for female candidates for interviews, it's viewed more balanced, and it's viewed more positively. I think that regarding the strategies that we have to follow, that's not, again, if you have a balanced decision-making body, that's not the only thing that is going to get you to get what you want. That you have to have a series of strategies and policies. And I think the most important thing is to have gender diversity in the organization. So as we were discussing this morning and getting together with the male and female researchers and administrators of the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence, and we see that we have over the years developed the culture, the ethics, and the mentality. The mentality is the most important thing of gender diversity. So we have a very high number of females participating that has set the pace for the collaboration, for the collegiality, for the camaraderie, for the achievement of excellence that we are pursuing at the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence. So I think that having gender diversity in the organization and having people understand that they're being treated equally and they have opportunities, that's a key issue, and we have to continue to do that. Having said that, we also have to go on with important things that we have to continue to have and improve at the ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence. We, from the discussion I think this morning, is very evident that we have to eliminate biased language from announcement of positions. We have to make sure that the wording eliminates biased language. I think in the announcements for the positions, we have to stress the diversity and equality in the announcement, and the fact that we have a balanced group of people and gender balance in the organization. And in some occasions, it may be possible to say that we welcome female candidates for the position. Regarding the interviewing process, I think it's also very important that we have to continue to have diverse interview committees. It's important to have a balance, and we have to improve on that. We have to have a balance in the gender, in the interviewing committees, to make female candidates feel more comfortable, and also to stress the diversity and equality objectives and commitments during the interview, and to make female candidates feel comfortable and feel that they're welcome, and that this organization would be the organization they would like to work for. Of course, we have to provide incentives for new female and existing female researchers, as we have discussed this morning, and I think that the Ofandos will probably tell you more about this, giving economic bonuses, relocation bonuses for female candidates, make sure that we have the training for female researchers and administrators, flexible working schedules. That's a big issue that has been raised by our guests here. We even have a lot of obligations, family obligations, so we have to be very flexible if we want to attract women. And the most important thing, I think, is opportunities for promotion. Everybody wants to feel that they have this opportunity. And I think the last thing that I want to say, that I consider that this very, very important also, is to have training and mentorship programs for all employees. So the male members of our research team also feel that this is good for them also. This create collaboration, collegiality, and productivity with the female members of the team. So I think all these policies are necessary policies, and I'm sure that our guests here may have more suggestions.
Thank you, Professor Anagnatos. And going from your examples to actions, my question now goes to Ms. Nadia Christopini, our HR manager. We heard from the chairman of ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence board about the approved gender equality plan. Have you already started implementing any strategies to ensure gender inclusivity at the center? And which are the strategies that are now starting to be implemented?
Here we have the Centre of Excellence. We aim to create a fully inclusive environment. And to this end, we have started very early on with actions since the commencement of our operations, with actions relating to gender issues. So we have commenced with the compilation of a gender equality plan. This gender equality plan has been fully approved by the executive committee, by the board of directors, which shows management's commitment to enhancing and improving upon gender issues. The gender equality plan is aimed at creating awareness on gender issues, and now we have created the Gender Equality Committee, which is comprised of 6 persons, and it has members from management, administration, and researchers in order to make it universally applicable. The aim is for the committee to be appointed on an annual basis, and through questionnaires, interviews, and other actions to create further awareness on things that we need to improve upon, and even for our gender equality plan to evolve, to include the outcomes of the questions and the interviews and these processes, so that hopefully each year we will compile an annual report, and on the basis of which we will be able to improve our organization on issues of gender. Additionally, we have compiled a list of KPIs, monitor gender issues, and with this year's committee, which has already been appointed, our plan is to start reviewing all these issues with our interviews and our questionnaire. As part of our committee's undertakings is various trainings, mentorship programs discussed. So this is the first one. We're very happy that we are here, and our fellow committee members that this has been arranged. So this is more or less what has to be the gender equality plan and the gender equality committee. But apart from that, we have here a Centre of Excellence. We have tried to coordinate our efforts to implement the charter for researchers, the code of research, which in part has the OTMR strategy embedded, which is regarding an open, transparent, based recruitment checklist. So through that, we also aim to improve our processes in regards to recruitment, making more to fix any disparities. Additionally, we have created a code of conduct and disciplinary process whereby any act of harassment, bullying, any sort of act on the basis of gender is considered a gross misconduct with very, very
concept. So I think this should stand up now.
Thank you. And considering recruitment, my next question goes to Professor Hadjimitsis. As a managing director of ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence, and also during your career, what is your experience so far in shaping a gender-inclusive team, and in including also the gender dimension in the decision-making body of ERATOSTHENES Centre of Excellence?
One of the main priorities of the new Center of Excellence is the this is the main task of the new priority system, but this also was our vision before we established under the aspects of the scientific Institute of Technology 2 years ago, 2007, SHO, remote statistics development plan, the Department of Civil Engineering and Geomatics. I would like also to give some statistics based on the HR this that provided just 2 hours ago. We are still on the same percentage as we have 15 years ago. 36, 35 to 40% women in our center. We have the same percentage 15 years ago, and we want to capitalize on this percentage and continue to improve. I will give you some examples of the new Center of Excellence of our university that we established 2 years ago, based on the update that we have using the Excelsior funding project, 38 million euros. I'll give you some examples of the board of directors. We have member of the board. We used to have Vasiliki Anastasiadou, I've been appointed to another position from the government. We have Rosa Rosamoura from CNR Italy. 3 out of 7 is a good percentage. Let's look to the advisory board. We have 2 members out of 5, which is a good percentage also. I would like to give some statistics about the participation of women in the research clusters. We have 3 departments in the new center: the environment planning, data analytics, and disaster risk reduction. We have 12 thematic research topics under the 3 departments. We fill the position. We appointed some leaders on each thematic cluster on 8 clusters up to now, and we want to fill another 4 positions. 4 out of 8 are women. This is a good percentage, and we want to continue on these statistics. I would like to highlight also some obstacles and barriers that we have during the interviews and recruitment position. This professor was mentioned before. We have the vision to attract high caliber, high quality researchers, especially female researchers. And we try our best. We face a lot of programs. We have few response from the job announcements. We offer good motivation schemes to come to Cyprus to work with us, like rehabilitation of bonus and schemes. But unfortunately, the main obstacle are family problems. As we discussed the movement with Maria and Barbara, we got some good advice how to proceed in the near future, and hopefully we'll stick on this advice and continue to improve this situation. I would like to highlight also, as the professor mentioned, we have the mentality, we have the culture, we have the ethics in our organization to promote diversity and equal opportunities to both male and female employees in a balanced and productive work environment. And I would like to assure that we continue to attract female researchers at all levels. Furthermore, because we have some people that they have been moved from the university to the new center, we have new employees that we got from the
top announcements. I would like to assure all of them that we will affect opportunities for professional development so as to be able to claim leadership position in the organization in the near future. And we want to use these opportunities for the female employees to see more female decision making, especially of the executive committee that we discussed before, and thus more female leaders in another thematic business classes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Hadjimitsis, and also for the statistics you provided to us. I will stick to the part with the obstacles from your answer, and I would like to address my next question to our two invited speakers, Professor Rentetzi and Ms. Ryan. Why do you think that this happens, and why are women usually more hesitant in relocating for a job position? And do you think that there are any strategies to or mechanisms to enable them? What do you think that could be adopted to overcome this obstacle? Who would like to?
Say the same story I said this morning about trying to hire a female postdoctoral fellow, but very briefly. I had a position, it was specifically for females, and I got some applications, very good ones. I chose 4 of them. I offered the position to the first said 2 weeks later, oh, I cannot come. Why? Because the husband and the 2 kids were not able to come as well. The husband was not able to move because of professional reasons. We offered the position to the second one a month later. So it took her a month to let us know that for similar reasons she couldn't come, and so on and so forth. So we actually, I was able to hire only the 4th one in the list. Why am I saying this story? Because something that we discussed extensively this morning, it's really important when you want to attract female researchers. You have to think not only of the specific person that we want to bring, but you have to think big. You have to think for the whole family. Women come with their families. They are the ones that care for the children, usually the men, even if they are very conscious and they don't want this kind of situation. Socially, they are more pressed to have very long work times. So they start the morning, they come home the evening. Who is going to care for the kids? The women are supposed and expected to have more flexible time schedules, work schedules. So what can we do? First of all, to change the structures we have. We speak about packages, let's offer packages to attract more women, but who is going to give this, to offer this money? The EU has to change its policy. It's not only the universities, but the EU, which is the major funding agency for us, for those of us who work in EU universities. The European Union has to redesign its gender policies. They force us to think about gender, to include gender in the proposals. But I think at the end, they don't do as much they could in these terms and by offering more flexibility to women. Having said this, I also want to say something that we didn't have the time to discuss this morning, that when we speak about gender, we don't speak about women only, and we don't speak about men and women only. Right now, gender is something like a rainbow, right? When we start talking about gender, we have many profiles to keep in mind. We have many different kinds of lives, of cultures to consider. So if we want to be diverse, all this discussion about diversity from the UN organizations like UNESCO has to take into account that gender as a multi-level category these days. And this is not on the table. This is not something we usually discuss, and we should open this discussion. Historians of science have started doing this kind of work by studying this notion of gender from this perspective in a historical, from a historical perspective. And for example, there are gay studies, queer studies in history of science, but this is only recently done, and I hope that more colleagues are going to focus on these issues. Again, when we speak about gender in academia, we have to take more issues into account and not only what women are going to do in the professional lives, although this is important. One point, and this is my last point, for those women that they ask you, guys like them, they come to you and they say, why you don't take this leadership position? And you hesitate and you say, no, I want to do my research, I don't want to get there. This chance is not only for you. Think about this. This is not only a personal decision. This is not only something that you are asked to do for your career. This is for good or for bad. This is something that you are asked to do for your fellows, for the women that are in the lower hierarchy below you. So if you are asked to take a leadership position, just take it. Don't think a second moment. You are going to open the doors for someone and some others that come behind you, and they expect some support, but they are not going necessarily to find this support to male colleagues. Thank you.
Really particularly important too, because I think there's just so much socialization that goes on from a very, very early age, that the role of mentors and the role of role models is so important. We were talking about vacancy announcements today, and actually both Andreas mentioned that we could do a better job of looking at our vacancy announcements and the words we use, because of course vacancy announcements are written that we want the absolutely best person that we can get into this position. In general, and that's not to say that men are as equally insecure as women, but in general, women will look at a vacancy announcement and see that it has 10 or 12 qualifications, immediately discount 2 or 3 of them that they don't possess the skills that clearly the employer wants. Now, the truth of the matter is, any male applying for that same job probably also doesn't have 2 or 3 of the skills in that particular position. But we are often our own worst enemy. We select or self-select ourselves out before somebody else can give us a chance to say no. And I'll just give you one sort of personal story about this. It was again 1985 when it turned out to go back to graduate school. My employer had a sabbatical program, so you had to compete for this program. But if you got into the program, they would give you 9 months of schooling at a university that you would apply to and have to get into, and then that university would have the skills that my employer wanted. So, but you only had 9 months to go back for a master's degree, and there were only a handful of schools in the United States that you could actually get through coursework fast enough over that period of time to get all of the coursework done for a master's. Well, it turned out Stanford was one of them, and so I can remember the conversation at home saying, well, I cannot go to Stanford, it's not civil engineering, but there's no way I'll get in, so I'm not even going to apply. And my husband looked at me and said, well, then the answer is no. If you don't apply, you know the answer is already no. Why are you giving yourself a no? Why don't you put the responsibility, at least on the institution, to say no to you? And of course, I applied and I got in, I got a master's from there. But that happens, I think, a real lot. Maybe to everyone, but particularly to women that will often be the first person to say no to themselves rather than wait for the institution to say no. So I guess what I would like to come back to Maria's point
and say, yes, apply. All they can do is say, no, we're not going to give you that job. But it's the institution saying no. It's not you saying no to yourself. So
Thank you. I think we heard a lot of insights, and I don't want to keep the discussion long. I would actually like to open the discussion for the Q&A. So if we have any questions, I think we can start with some questions. Please also introduce yourself if you have a question, and if you have it to a specific panel member, you may also mention to whom is the question addressed.
Thank you. I can start. My name is, as you said before, I work at the Deputy Ministry for Research, Innovation and Digital Policy. Previously, I was at the National Funding Agency, the Research and Innovation Foundation in Cyprus. It was really interesting to see today to learn more about your experiences, but also see the historical data that I never thought of exploring in the 1920s. My question is about what would be your suggestion, and I'm maybe talking to guest speakers today. What would be your suggestions for the ministry on the two key actions in the coming period in order to move a step further? Thank you.
I'll jump in on one. And I'm saying this because I get benefit of these programs. And that is, there isn't a role for affirmative action programs at the government level or at an institutional level. And I'll say that because sometimes people in minority positions just need an opportunity to prove themselves. And so that graduate school program that I mentioned, I know in 1985, the U.S. Geological Survey had a very definite goal of looking for more talented women and giving them an opportunity to succeed. And so while I applied for that program and was one of the women that got accepted into it, that helped. Now, I had to walk through the door, and so you have to succeed if someone opens the door for you. For most of us, men and women, you will put a lot of pressure on yourself. We are our own worst critics, usually. And so I think the role of some very definite affirmative action programs to give people in minority positions and a step forward, or maybe just confidence, is really important.
I totally agree with Barbara. I don't think that we can do something better than this, than affirmative action, although you don't really need to call it affirmative action because this raises many issues and concerns. But what you can also do is advise, is invite women as advisors in your ministry. And I'm saying this because I have worked for 1 year at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Greece as a science diplomacy advisor. I realized that there are not many women around. They don't invite us to advise. They ask us to do things here and there, review proposals, do like practical issues, but we are not participating in the committees that decide. So open the window, open the door to women, your women from this country, right, to come to the ministry and give them a leadership role and ask them this question, like, because it's different if you share your data, if you share all of your cases with someone sitting next to you and say, what can we do about this? You know the country, you know the people, you know your fellows, what do you advise us? Advisory positions are really very important. So you should open up this to women.
Hello. I'm in the university in the academy, so my question is for something that I don't know enough about. First of all, you mentioned that the functions and the university that they use in the developed countries and universities. And the second question is if the ratio of gender in the application to the admissions matches the percentage in the actual jobs. I tend to believe that the ratio of the actual positions women is higher than the actual application. And I would like to know what comments on that. And the third question is about whether the LGBTI movement makes the gender equality more difficult because as we presentations of the binary male and female, so how we know what we need to check in the statistics in order to make them more interesting. Sorry for the three questions.
I have a very short answer for your last question. If you want diversity in general, make your leadership diverse, right? If you have diversity in the bodies that decide who is coming and who is not, then you are going to have a diverse workforce, and this is a simple answer.
Just saying that all the presentations and also gender equality in the binary
You're absolutely right, but this is in a way the easiest way to go through, because if you start talking about the other genders, right, it's more difficult to get through traditional and very like inflexible bodies like the state or the university. I'm not happy for saying this. I'm not.
It's so true. It's a good first step.
Yeah, it's a good first step.
I think you need to repeat the first question.
Yeah, the first question was when someone is applying for any role, for leadership roles, I mean, the percentage of the women applying actually for these roles is less than the percentage of the people of the women applying these roles.
I'm not sure about this. I mean, I don't know the statistics unless the university, you know this more. I don't know.
It's a difficult statistic. From what I remember, and just based on my memory, I think that the ratio of women that were hired based on the ratio of women that have applied is about the same. I don't remember any case where we had a huge number of women applying for one position that did not get it, or you know, any other situation that gave me the impression that there is some kind of unbalance between applications and successful hirings. So I would say that we don't have that problem, but that's just based on memory. We have also other people that are in the administration here. I don't know if somebody like, I don't know, Katerina, do you have anything to say on this? In the Department of Nursing, in the School of Health Science?
Nursing here in the Cyprus University Council, but I would say that nursing is a department of the university university that has the more female. I mean, we have a diversity mainly in the opposite side because nursing is more represented from women. But to be honest, because I'm a cardiology specialist, this is not happening to the whole spectrum of cardiology. When we come to medical science of cardiology, we have much more men. We have, especially I'm representing several homes in Europe, like heart failure. There we have much more men. We are struggling with the diversity of gender. And also at times we have on the board only a couple of women and the one with me because 100% nursing. And what we have been seeing the last year is that we have a lot of women in cardiology. We have more successful students in the science of medicine, but when we come to the leadership position, yes, we have more men. Also applying for leadership positions, but also men are like a lobby. And we see that they have a strong lobby position, and something that gets their strength. As I said earlier, it's about this nursing in the right program. So we see how it goes in the future. But yes, the health sciences is an issue that we are starting.
Something that I just wanted to mention here, if we go back to looking at the history of the racial problem that we had in the United States back in the mid 60s, and the effort that the Black population was making to achieve an equal status and get their civil rights, we see that it was from the white community leadership that people took the responsibility to promote that idea, and then with that effort that the Black community was trying to do to get their rights, they managed to essentially claim and succeed in having equal rights for everybody, for all people in the United States. So my point here is that I think that based on what Katerina has mentioned, it is our responsibility as men that we have to view these efforts as efforts that are for our benefit. And as Barbara has mentioned earlier, we have our daughters, we have our sisters, we have people, but even our colleagues, that if we push forward and abandon this kind of policy of a small group that decides who is going to be in the leadership, then we're going to see better days. But I think this is very important. We have to develop as men the correct mentality, to face this problem and not to feel, threatened by it. Because I think ERATOSTHENES is a good example. We have a good group of female and male researchers that we I want to say that we have collegiality, we have good collaboration, we have camaraderie, trying to achieve excellence within this Center of Excellence. So I think to be able to change this kind of stereotype of in the leadership, it's a small group of people who decide who's going to be. Then I think we're going to have a better world.
I definitely agree with that. Also, if we have in the nominating that they are actually evaluating applications for several positions, then if we say that we are going to have percentages of men and women, then we start from there. So those who make the decisions or choose people, we start from there, and then the changes might happen. Thank you.
I can add to that. I used to work for a gender project under the European Commission, and some colleagues mentioned the existence of the gender experts that we're discussing now. Do you have any experience with that? gender expert in the entire industry?
The question to me. I don't know if you want to see. I don't think that we have tried to, I mean, but we have the opportunity to, or the luxury to have a gender expert. I mean, I don't know if there are many gender experts here in Cyprus, but I think having, gender balance in the interview bodies, as I mentioned in the beginning, makes, female candidates feel much more comfortable, acceptable, and it will help them perform even better in the interview if there is, a balance, a gender balance in the interview body.
I think there are students that want to ask more questions, so maybe we can.
Good evening. My question is for the entire panel. In Cyprus, we have a system of examination from the secondary that specifically the subject we choose will have different fields. And we can pass in any field, not many of my colleagues want to first start coming to university. They told me that, especially women, they told me that the same field was more their choice. And they just come because they passed the education and they want a degree. Do you think the lack of choice from this system is actually a good thing because it's equalizing the percentage of women and men, or you would have more choices, like for example, the United States, not a public system, and they pay. That you see the percentage way of women.
I think that you cannot impose on people. I mean, you have to give them the option to choose in the national examination, where they have to choose which subject they want. So it's a decision by the candidates. And, you're saying that everybody should be in the same pot, and whoever is better goes to the different fields. I don't think that's what you said. No.
We need it for
The Zoom.
What I'd like to say is, they come to university because they already passed. And they say, I passed, so I will stay to get a degree. But it was not their choice. They say, that equalized, it's close to 50-50. For example, in my class, it's close to 50-50. But many of the women in my class, it wasn't their choice to come. That was like it's a good thing. I think we have the story, but we choose because if people to a year, examination again, choice, we choose to stay in the.
If I understand, Greece and Cyprus have the same system, right, of entering the university. So it's not that we don't have a choice. If I understand what you're saying, is that you say, let's say I want to go to the physics department in Athens, but the points I get through the examination, through the exams, don't get me to the physics department in Athens, but it gets me to mathematics in Crete, for example, right? Because it has less points, right? And so the question is, should I stay there or should I move and take exams once again? And whether this helps or not. I think this is the best system. I mean, I complain a lot about my own country, but there is one thing that hasn't been corrupted, right? And this is this examination. These are the examinations that we take in order to go to the university. I don't want to touch them. I don't want this to change. As I said, this is the only thing that hasn't been corrupted. And when the kids go and take the exam, they know that it's going to be fair, and they are going to go to a school, to a department, and either they stay there or they take exams they give exams the next year, and they change. I'm not sure whether this changes anything about gender, because it more or less it's the same if you go to physics or mathematics, if you choose natural sciences. I mean, you cannot go, let's say, to education if you come from the natural sciences, or at least this is how it was in Greece. I'm not sure about the system in Cyprus, but it's the same. So if you want to go to the natural sciences, you take exams in the natural sciences, meaning physics, mathematics. There is not much difference in terms of gender in all these fields. Your mic.
So my friend, I think that means that I will give an example of my department. Most probably that will not be a percentage of 60%. But most probably, if you ask this 4%, yes, if they would like to do or to do the profession of the engineer, most of them will reply no. So the question has exactly this point, that the system, which is a perfect system in terms of how to say, like no corruption, inequality, and makes both men and women, sometimes most of the time, to enter the environment that they do not like. And in terms of diversity, first of all, this works in the right direction. But at the same time, it's future and future professionals that they do like the job. That's the best that they can get.
Well, do you have a suggestion though how to tackle this problem? I mean,
No, there is no suggestion, just a question. He asked, and I heard his argument. Okay, this always in terms of diversity. Is it correct? That's it's very, very crucial question. I agree with you. I don't know the answer, but I think. I'm going to continue for profession next school and forward. If your percentage of your students is most probably you will have some 20% men and 70% women. Am I correct? 40% men, 60% women. Okay, and let's say that you will also have the ability to make it 50-50. What are you going to do? It's not something that you can, but the society somehow should attract men to want to like to do the job of the men. It's the same with the men.
They had a man dressed as a nurse, and they were asking, are you a man enough to be a nurse? And yes, it has a gender issue here, but the difference here is we do have men, because we also have men in leadership. Just to tell you, the first chairs of my department also be were men. And I just the second female as a previous woman.
Personally, I want to say that I don't speak outside. Especially from the
from the beginning of this presentation, especially from Ms. Rentetzi. From your video, we saw 22% of AI are women. Yes. Let's see some facts. In Cyprus, in AI and machine learning department, the head of this department is a woman. Well, at least she was 3 years ago when I was at one of her lectures. So 22% is a very small number, although a woman is on top. She's on top of this department. How do you explain? The woman can be on top of all of this money. And so, although it's a very small number, the woman is the head of this money.
The question is, should I say thank you? Because out of 20% women, a woman made it to the top. My question is, how did she make it? How many nights she didn't sleep? How many nights the kids were crying, she was caring about the kids, and at the same time she knew that she had to do work in order to go to the top. I mean, what this woman has sacrificed in order to be on the top? This is my question. I see what you are saying. Yes, there are women at the top. The question is how they got on the top, what they have sacrificed to be on the top, and why it should be so difficult for women to be on the top.
I don't think it's difficult. I mean, when I was
Ask the women.
So are you saying that
more, yes, I believe it's more difficult for the man. The woman is family. Yeah.
But are you saying that the men had the maturity to allow a woman to be in charge of them? Is that what you're saying?
This is even worse. Don't trap him.
When I was at the election, I was truly amazed at her, not because she was a woman, but because she was a brilliant person. And I think there are not so many women on top, not because they are women, but because they don't have a chance to take inspiration from this field. Most of the...
I'm not sure I got this point. So there are not women on the top because?
Because they don't have a chance to take the inspiration.
I do think at the time. And it can be doing. This is I don't think that there is no chance to find that kind of change. The same happens in terms of AI or PCJ or whatever. Also, at least my kids, but still not so. They read this, they have good skills and computing and all these things. So I don't know if they would like to be electrical engineers or something similar, or engineers at all, but I don't know. I don't know, but I don't think that now 2021, 22, 33, no, the years decided at least do not have the same opportunities as before in terms of how to decide. I don't know.
In my class, only one girl, only one, and the rest of us, we are boys.
Which field?
electrical engineering.
Oh, yeah, it's even
Yeah.
worse, yes.
Why is that? That one girl has actually she chose to be there.
Okay, so we are trying to understand what you're trying to, what I think you're trying to say is that, if women would be interested in electrical engineering, they would have the opportunity and they could go up there. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
We are not
They could.
In Athens, I was teaching at the Metsovio, the National Technical University, for years, for more than 10 years. And my best class was the engineers, the electrical engineers. Why? Because these were the brightest kids coming into the department, especially in Athens at the Metsovio. They were at the top. You couldn't get smarter kids than them. Majority men. Few women. Why? Because women are not interested? No. Because when they get out of the university, they don't have job offers. It's not very easy to find a job offer. It's not that they are not smart, but they see that there is no future for them. You come to the university, you spend a lot of your time getting through the exams. You dedicate the whole year, at least the whole year, in order to get into the department. You read, you study like crazy for 5 years, and then you get out and everyone says, oh, you are a woman, no chances. Same with all engineers. So is it that they don't want, or the conditions, the social conditions are such that they don't allow them to continue? This is my question. But maybe it's time to wrap it up.
I think.
Let me just build on that a little bit, but I'm in the same position. I don't think that there's anything inherent about electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or nursing or medicine that would have women or men be any more attracted to that particular field. I think it would be just, if 50% of the population is women, 50% of the men, 50% of the electrical engineers would be women, 50% would be men. And because it isn't that way, then I think you've got to go back and say, where were all the inherent biases that are built into our system from a very, very young age, where women or young girls might be pushed this way, men and young boys might be pushed another way. For me, that's the only thing that would explain it, because I would think both men and women would find that profession equally exciting if you like electrical engineering. But somehow women aren't there. Why? And I think it's because at a very young age, we are socialized against the sciences, technologies, engineering, and math. I think it takes some really kind of strong people, strong young girls to say, no, I like this field and I'm staying here. You know, kind of like Jane Goodall in that picture. You know, I mean, she was the one that actually observed these primates and said, there's a social structure here. Nobody believed her. Her professors did not believe her that there was a social structure among these primates and that they were very different. And she yet somehow had the perseverance to stay with that particular subject. She had the conviction to say, no, I've observed it. I think it's right. And so I have to believe there are young girls that want to be electrical engineers, but either they hear at home or they hear in school that no, girls don't go into that field, you better look at something else. And for me, that's what's got to change, because everyone, whether you are male or female, or you know, one of the other genders that are, we're just so far away. I think from collecting data, wanting to look at the report and then collecting data, I don't think we're going to get good transgender data for a long time. You know, even some of the fine print on the statistics that I found said that there aren't even good male-female data in some parts of the world because of our social structure. So when is that going to change? I think it's going to be a long time.
I think we are close to conclude. Actually, we had also the whole discussion as parallelly at Zoom, and we had the nice comment that I would like to read. It's just a comment, not a question. We need the infrastructure in the workplace to support the needs of the family for working mothers, flexibility in working place, thinking through maternity needs during those early years, good management that acknowledges that challenge of working in a highly technical field and keeping a growing family afloat. So let's just also consider this as a comment. And to conclude, I would like to ask Professor Hajimetzis for a concluding remark. Also, the invited speakers, if you want to give us a concluding remark, let's start with
Yes, but I would like to express my sincere thanks to Maria, Professor Maria Rentetzi, kind acceptance to join the today event. We are very proud and thank you for your kind contribution to this event. We are very pleased. Thank you for the kind suggestion that we have in the morning when you meet all the researchers and administrators of our new center. We'll continue with stick on these guidelines. Thank you very much. I would like also to express my sincere thank and appreciation to the board of directors of the new center, especially to our chairman, Professor Evangelos Akilas, Marios Emiliadis, who joined the event. We have some also online participants from the board of directors, Rosa Lasandora, I saw the participants, and Tasso Emiliadis. Thanks for your high support, the strategic decision that we are taking during the board of directors meetings. Thank you very much to the executive committee, functional area manager Andreas Apertos, and the rest of the management committee. And yes, finally, my big thanks to Eleni Luli and Christiana Makucha for running this event. They exchanged a lot of emails that I mentioned in the morning session to have this event, my physical presence. Thank you, Eleni. Thank you, Christiana. I would like also to express my great thanks and appreciation to the Department of Electronic Communication, especially we have a representative here, Elena Gavri, Deputy Minister of Research and Innovation, for sponsoring this event. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank also the Excelsior partners and the Horizon funding scheme. And we are very proud that we got this big project, 13 million euros. We continue to work very hard. And as we promised during the interview when we went to Brussels, we are 100% confident that we will continue with the same model, motivation, stick on our culture and ethics. And we're working as a team for promoting research innovation in the Earth observation station. Thank you very much.
I think
Nothing, only my thanks. And I should start from Eleni and Christiana for making this event possible. We spent a lot of time on Zoom thinking how this could be more successful for the group here. So many thanks. And one final sentence. I was thinking, if you want to change the world and you make the world more inclusive, start from yourselves. Start by doing something instead of waiting for others to change infrastructures, change working conditions and all these things. So start from yourself and demand for things to change. Thank you very much for the invitation.
To everyone as well. It's just been a lot of fun. We have a beautiful country. It's great fun to be again. And I'm just really happy, just to see young people in the audience. I think for me, having the conversations are just so important. So thanks for all your questions. And really appreciate you guys reaching out to me to be here. Thank you very much.
also from my side, thanks to everyone for joining us. Thanks also to the Zoom participants, to our guests. And I would like to invite everyone outside for a snack and a drink. Thank you.